Hey, howdy, hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Steam Redlight series, the series where we look at Steam's most lowly and controversially rated games to see if they're really as bad as the internet says they are. I'm your host for the day, Smirk. Just wanted to take a short moment before starting to say two short celebratory sentences to honor the channel's first milestone of 100 subscribers. So, thanks. We appreciate being able to take up some of your very valuable time and hope we can continue that forever, or something. Today's game is called Grimtale Island. This game was originally released as an early access title on September 3rd of 2017, then exited early access on November 26th of 2020, and is currently priced as a 99-cent game. It was developed and published by Michael Shade. Is that Shade? Or is that Scod? Or is it Scada? Well, if you're watching, sorry about that, Michael. Grimtale Island currently has 31 reviews in total, with 67% of those reviews being positive. This game is billed as an open-world survival that takes place on an island where the dead come to life. There's two islands to choose from in the beginning, Starter Island and Grimtale Island. I started on Starter Island to learn how the game worked, then moved on to Grimtale since that's the name of the game. From the start, you'll have to collect materials such as stone, wood, and fiber up off the ground by hand in order to get started on climbing through the tech tree so you can start producing tools and weapons, so you can gather items from other places than just the floor. The game also features a little bit of base building in the form of walls and doors, but that's mostly it. The island is home to multiple points of interest like villages, military outposts, a quarry, and a big destroyed city, I think. I can't really tell what this place is. As far as inhabitants, the island is composed of 4 life forms in total, one of which is yourself, while the other 3 are deer, bunnies, and zombies. As far as other things you can find on the island, you can find bananas, apples, and bottles of water for your consumption. For medicine, there's medkits and radiation-curing pills. For minerals, in addition to the wood and stone on the ground, you'll find metal. For protection, while you can't find actual weapons since you have to make them yourself, you can find ammunition, small caliber magazines for the handgun, and larger caliber for the single-shot rifle. As for some various things, you can find a robotic trader who only seems to be interested in buying rocks and wood from you. Oddly enough, they value rocks twice as much as they value wood. You can buy medicine, ammo, and weapon parts from them, but that's just about it. Something else that's just about as uncommon as the trader are vehicles. There's military LUVs, a helicopter, and a tank that unfortunately doesn't fire anything. Well, that's just kind of disappointing. First I can't honk the horn in any of the vehicles, and now I just have this slow tank that has no destructive capabilities. I can't even run over zombies or wildlife to kill them. Just... why? Perhaps it's because this game never actually left early access. Well, without any further hesitation, let's talk about what I did enjoy about Grimtale Island. The thing that I enjoyed the most about Grimtale Island was the environmental graphics. Things look nice for the most part. They're not
breathtaking,
per se, but adequate. Alright, that's about everything I enjoyed, so let's move on to the ungoodening. So this game has some pretty special circumstances surrounding it. You see, throughout 2017 and 2018, the developer was pushing out pretty regular updates and engaging with the community. However, there was a long period of silence between September of 2018 until August of 2019, in which the developer announced the game was ending development immediately due to some unfortunate circumstances and could no longer commit to the game. But there is some discrepancy with this news post that I don't quite understand. The game was to be moved out to be free to play, yet it cost 99 cents today, and this game should have come out some time ago when the news post was announced in August of 2019, yet it was converted to its release date of November 27th of 2020. Anyway, I don't have an explanation for those questions, so let's just move on to the things that I didn't like. So to start with a smaller nuance before building up to the things that bothered me the most, the menu interface is pretty primitive. There's very little organization to it. It's all just letters and numbers with some scroll bars. You don't even know how much of something you can hold until you hit the max, and you don't even know everything that you're carrying since you can only see quantities when you're at the workspace that uses it, like meat and the fire pit, for example. Because the inventory UI is so primitive, you can't carry more than one tool, so once it inevitably breaks, you have to go back to your workbench to make a new one, or build a new workbench to replace it. This led to me building dozens of workbenches all over the island just so I'd always have an axe with me. Another thing that has kind of chipped away at the enjoyment is that there doesn't seem to be any procedural generation, or any generation at all. Now with a few sample tests, I realize I have always found the same items in the same places in the same quantities. Now because there's no generation, there also doesn't seem to be any regeneration, which means once a resource is fully depleted in that area, there's no natural reason why you should have to go back. This extends to zombies and other wildlife resources. Because of this also means that out in the wilderness, far from a point of interest, you're unlikely to find random bits of resources, which isn't that much of a problem. It just means that these resources were likely manually placed and is something to keep in mind while exploring. Speaking of points of interest, this game has several of them on this rather large island, some of which I've already mentioned. Because this game is, at its core, an early access title that is no longer being developed, that means a good amount of these are largely empty aside from some mobs and an occasional decoration of lootable items. This is extremely prevalent in the larger, more distant points of interest, like the destroyed city or the quarry. The destroyed city is rife with buildings that have absolutely nothing inside of them. No mobs, no lootable items, and even no furniture. The quarry, for example, has some lootable items, but funnily enough, there's not a single mineable rock, which just seems wrong. The ones closer to spawn seem decently decked out, but it's disappointing that you can't go into certain buildings because their door is closed, and you can't open or close world-built doors, which ends up leading to some pretty weird encounters with the enemy AI. The enemy AI in this game is very basic. If they see you, it seems like they're going to follow you until the end of the earth. For example, I ran into these zombies in some distant road and then ran over to a point of interest. Some odd minutes later, those same zombies found me, even though I was out of their sight for a pretty long time. There's also this scenario where there was a line of them stuck on this path coming from the starter village. I'm pretty sure these were the zombies I ran into at the beginning of the game, then I went to go around for half an hour and randomly found them stuck. The zombies also can't enter doors if there's more than one trying to get in at an angle, and this causes them to get both confused and horny. This can be troublesome because if you don't have a weapon to defend yourself with and that house only has one entry and exit, you're just kinda stuck, and you'll have to restart your game if you can't make an axe. As an honorable mention for the AI, the deer don't run away if you shoot them, they just accept the sweet caress of death. Kind of like myself as my vehicle rolls around the river bend. Well, here I am, to my 6th and final overall point. I could go on for a lot longer, but I try to limit myself to just 6 points, so I'll just summarize everything up with my biggest problem is that the game is unfinished. Scare quotes, it's also out of early access, and it costs money. This game was originally released in 2017 as a $7 game, which is kind of reasonable with the premise that the game would be further developed. Then a couple months later, the price got cut down to $5, then $2, then $1 for a period of time before going back up to $5 in July of 2018. However, since this game has met a premature demise, I can't really find any price fitting for the state of the game. In my head, I kinda wonder if there was a limitation set by Steam that made the game come out over a year after the developer's news post with a price tag, and if that's the case then that kinda sucks, but ultimately it doesn't fix any of the problems that this game has. Something that's also very strange is that there seems to be less features in the game in the current release in contrast to the updates that were released throughout the development cycle. For example, there's talks of a save capability, but I couldn't find one. You're supposed to have the ability to farm, but I can't find any seeds. There's also talks of wolves in some earlier reviews, but I only found deer and bunnies. I think with all of this under the hood, we can move on to the verdict. So to highlight this game's strengths, I think the graphics are nice. Once again, they're nothing mind-blowing, but I think the art is simple, but enjoyable. To summarize this game's weaknesses, the UI is primitive and doesn't allow for proper storage of tools, as well as not telling you everything that you have. Next up, there's either very little to no randomization or regeneration in this open-world survival game. Thirdly, there's several points of interest that are underdeveloped and without much mob presence or loot. Following that, we have some insubstantially crafted AI behaviors on both the enemy and wildlife AI. And lastly, the game on Steam has exited early access, but remains unfinished and abandoned while still costing money to purchase, which is in contrary to the developer's last news post. It's unfortunate for me to say, but I do not recommend Grimtale Island. I feel like it's unfortunate for me to say this because I think the developer seemed really passionate and communicative, but life circumstances just dealt them a bad hand. I think Grimtale absolutely could have turned out to be a nifty little survival game in a more promising timeline, but then again, if I say that, that's probably true for almost every game I end up not recommending. Well, that about wraps us up. Thanks for watching. If you like what I did here, consider supporting the channel by liking the video or sharing the video to someone who may like it. I welcome any comments about this game, the review itself, or any suggestions you may have. Lastly, subscribe if you couldn't shirk the smirk, and maybe I'll see you next week.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.